because all the countries of the G7 have said that they do not wish to revert back to the old system. The fact that we've included tourism, this is what Giorgia Meloni, our Prime Minister, wanted us to do. Well, I think that this is an Italian victory because for the first time we've actually discussed the topic of tourism at a G7. And this shows not only that tourism is a central issue for our country, but I think that we've also come up with a new model. And I believe that that model simply cannot be excluded by future G7s. And I think that that is a great achievement. Now, we've worked on a document, and to sum it up, there are three main pillars. First of all, there's the pillar of human resources. Let's remember that tourism is all about people, and people are a fundamental resource. We have to invest in the training of the people working in the sector. Then we have the question of sustainability, environmental sustainability, but equally important are economic and social sustainability. Another important issue is that in addition to sustainability, we have inclusion and accessibility. Tourism must be increasingly widespread. Tourism must take into account to an increasing extent the requirements of the local communities as well. And it is indeed a great victory for us all. And then we have technology and the importance of technology as well as artificial intelligence. This is the first time that we've been talking about the importance of artificial intelligence in the tourism sector at a G7 meeting. We, of course, must bear in mind that AI must be at the service of man and not vice versa. So there has to be a proper regulation of AI. This is crucial as well. A number of studies were referred to showing that AI in the tourist sector can play an important role. Between now and 2030, the growth rate could be over 10%. Costs could be reduced by 20%. And in the world, 130 billion has already been invested. We're talking about 6.22 billion by way of an impact for Italy alone. So these are important figures which we have to analyze carefully so as to tap the full potential of the opportunities available to us. But at the same time, we must avoid risks. It used to be said that tourism was like gold for our tourist sector, but we now have a new type of gold, which is data protection. Data protection. The data must be protected, particularly in this sector. This will mean that we'll be able to avoid false reviews, for instance, forged reviews. This is a phenomenon. There are these reviews out there which can declare the success or the total failure of a company, of a business. So these are the various issues which were discussed. I'm really proud of the fact that all the ministers of the G7 countries and the delegations invited were very much impressed by the beauty of our nation, by the program which we had organized for them over the past few days. We as Italians are perhaps just used to the beauties of this country, and we don't perhaps fully enjoy these marvelous sites, not as much as visitors. I saw that my colleagues were really impressed. I could see it from the expression of their eyes. They enjoyed Florence, but not just Florence. The two villages we visited yesterday. I could see the admiration in their eyes. So this goes to show you that we all have to be proud of the fact that we're Italian. We've got to be proud and better at selling all the beauties of our nation. We've got to be able to tell others about what we have in a better way and increase what we have to offer our guests and tourists from the rest of the world. So this means that we must try to commit ourselves more along these lines if we want to expand this sector. I know that everybody's interested in the word over-tourism. I believe that this word, this phenomenon, is a phenomenon which we have to contend with in some of our cities, not too many, thankfully. But this isn't just an Italian problem. If some people feel that there is over-tourism, if some people say that tourism is a threat, could I take them back to the pandemic, for instance, when we were all going around our cities and we were totally depressed and sad and in despair because the world had closed down and nobody could go anywhere. I think that the results regarding tourism for 2024 and the prospects for 2025 are going to provide a lot of energy and strength. Tourism is important. We've exceeded the record year of 2019 in terms of the results achieved, and I think we should all be very proud of that fact. And we must also remember that tourism is an instrument of peace, because very often we are afraid of what we don't know, of the unknown. When we do know, we're less afraid. So tourism helps people get to know, share, and familiarize themselves with other places. It's where we go to sleep, where we go to eat, and where we go to share. So I think that tourism can be an instrument of peace which we need in the world and which we all need. Thank you.
Sono delle domande?
If there are any questions, I'm ready to answer, or have I been clear? If you wish to ask a question, you can stand up. Christina, Armenia. The questions should be asked into a microphone, otherwise we can't translate them. Thank you, Minister. This has been a very interesting session and the work very important. Next year, I think you have some prospects for next year within the G7 and also for other nations. What was the discussion with other nations? I think that what you said will be developed in the future for other nations as well. Can you tell us about that? Yes, I'd also like to greet to the director of Uffizi, who has come to see us. Well, yes, certainly, as I said before, we can't go back. I don't think it'll be possible to have a G7 without having tourism included in the G7. We said with all our colleagues that we're going to go onwards with the various subjects that we have talked about. Maybe we'll go deeper to some others, and we'll see how the solutions evolve. Many countries have looked into the solution of certain problems that have impact on different sectors of tourism. So we're going ahead in these directions. We're working together. And I think it's correct to enlarge things as much as possible, because tourism is interesting for all nations of the world. And so it would be a good thing to enlarge it as much as possible and invite more delegations, even more than the ones that we've invited here in this G7 of ours. Minister, good day. There are many subjects that we've dealt with. There's also the development of the theme of walks. Will you be confirming that you'll be walking along the road, the Francigena road, the roadway, and talk about the emotion that the different delegations had in the trip to Monteriggioni yesterday? Can you tell us something more? I see you don't know me well enough, because usually when I say something, usually it takes place unless something terrible interferes. So tomorrow morning I will be going along the walk, which is the Francigena way. I'll be starting from Marina di Pietrasanta, reaching Lucca. It'll take 2 days. Not only do I love walking, because I think walking is good both for the body and the mind, but I think we can assess what are our, because in the world we see what tourism is, tourism, but we really have great offers on not only the Francigena walk, but never as now as the Francigena way important, because you'll remember that in 2025 there's going to be the Jubilee, where there are another 30 million pilgrims who are going to be arriving, and some will be coming to Rome from the Francigena way, which is a great opportunity because the pilgrims, beyond the spiritual nature, which of course the Jubilee has, the pilgrims then become tourists as well. And so we'll have to have a capacity to not only keep them in Rome or in the region of Lazio, but to take them all over our country. The Ministry for Tourism has believed about these walks since the beginning. We made resources available. We made tenders, because we think that there are whole communities that work along these walks. We have experiments abroad. There are some places where they're very well organized. There are places where one can sleep, eat. There are hostels. I think that in Italy, from this point of view, we have a lot to do, a lot more to do. But certainly it's an element that we'll be aiming at, because these walks can truly, these caminos, have a lot of possibility. So we're working on this for the Jubilee. And the Jubilee, which is a great event, when great events come to Italy, there's always accelerators. There are accelerators because there are resources available, and also there are accelerators for what they will be leaving when the event will be over, as we are seeing now in Milano Cortina 2026. There is a lot of criticism, of course. There's already somebody who's not for our national team, for our country. But as always, in the end, Italy shows that it's always able to accept the challenge and be up to the challenge. So our Jubilee will be a success, and Milan Cortina 2026 will also be a great sporting event, and it will be very successful. Cinzia Conti from ANSA. Good morning. I very much like what you said about peace. Has anything come out regarding these wars, which have been lasting for such a long time? Have you and your colleagues talked about these wars at all? And the other thing I want to ask, there are countries that, of course, we know quite well, but there are other countries who are outreach. Have they said anything new regarding best practices to welcome tourists who come, say, from India or from Eastern countries, which for Italy would be very important? Well, regarding peace, we were all in agreement that tourism is an instrument of peace. It's a bridge towards peace. I repeat what I said before. Usually we human beings are afraid of what we don't know. We're afraid because we don't know what it is, who it is. So if we travel, if we know, if we share, if we have relations, this can really help to have peace in the world. And even from an egotistical point of view, apart from any implication, we all know what peace means, but we need peace in the world in order to be able to have people travel. And certainly it's very important. It's not only an exclusive fact for tourism. I think this emerged from everything that was said by all of my colleagues. Tourism is an instrument for peace. Of course, the other delegations, yes, it's important to listen to everyone. I think that from any experience, we can always derive advantages, benefits, and we can also see if there are better practices. Practices might be better than ours are. I listened with a great deal of attention to all of the people who took the floor, also the delegations who were outside of the G7. For instance, Egypt, the minister from Egypt made a great speech on artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence, I don't know if I'm repeating things properly, but I'm trying to give you a summary. There is a great personalization with the application of artificial intelligence, and he said that it would be interesting to emerge from our comfort zone. It shouldn't all be so personalized, so done especially for ourselves, because if we keep to our comfort zones, we're losing something important outside of our comfort zones. I listened to India too. For us, India is a very important country because we have to be able to see growth in tourist flows from India towards Italy, which, as you know, it's a huge population, and especially there are people who are very enthusiastic about Italy and everything Italian. So it was interesting to listen to all of them, also for the next few meetings that we'll be having. Nobody said anything obvious. I felt really enriched after these 2 days of listening to them all, because we were able to look into aspects and subjects which were really interesting, and everybody gave a contribution that will be very useful for us all. It'll be useful to set up new activities, new actions, so as not to have to be submitted to tourism, but to know how to manage tourism, because managing tourist flows makes a big difference also as to over-tourism. Good day. Are there any Italian initiatives that were considered more interesting in the G7 delegations, and that these countries might take example from what they've seen in our country? What was greatly appreciated by France is what we did on mountain tourism, because France is similar to us Italians, and we as ministry, we as government, have invested a lot of resources in the mountains, about 400 million euros, both in the Alps and also on the Apennines, because sometimes one tends to forget about the Apennines, which instead are an important place for the growth of our tourism. So France, we also had a bilateral where we talked about this theme, and they appreciated and wanted to know what our point of view was regarding development. And we also talked about the question of climate change, because there's great fear that there might be less snow in the mountains, for instance. And they also asked what we were doing, and they said, and we said that we're investing both to equip our ski stations to see how rain can be collected, which can then be transformed into snow, and also on the tender that we did for the ski, the obsolete ski lifts, because some are obsolete, and so we talked about the resources we made available for that, and they were all interested in this. Then with the UK, we talked about what we said about the management of flows, because it really is important for tourism to manage flows properly. And we all agree that tourism is a sector which, from the technological point of view, is very advanced, because very many travelers, very many tourists do their bookings on platforms. So we believe that if we regulate and have an ethical vision of artificial intelligence, it could be very important for the management of flows, therefore to work on this and to see the possible applications. So we were appreciated, just like I appreciated other nations appreciated us on what we have been able to do in these past 2 years for tourism. But what I think was most appreciated by everyone is that we gave tourism something which is very central. We talked about tourism as a proper industry. We said that the possibility of growth for certain nations are really very important, also from the point of view of employment and jobs. Italy, as you know, gave very important figures in this field, and also jobs for women. I don't say this because I am particularly, because I consider that we women are better. I just think that we are different from men. But we have greatly increased the women workers, and this is important because giving women independence means making women freer, making women, giving them more possibility to manage their own life as best they think. So this is another important element. And the other element is professional training that all nations, the G7, see as very important. Verena from Nexus. Good morning. What are the concrete messages for the actual guarantee of inclusion of people with disabilities in tourism? And especially, what is the strategy which you are considering to have accessible tourism? Forgive me if I don't speak Italian too well. Well, on accessibility is another important theme. The first thing to do is to eliminate architectural barriers, because that is the most important thing. We've done it. We, Ministry of Tourism, have made available funds for accessibility of but all nations are doing so, because if a nation is civilized, it has to allow access and tourism for everyone, because it isn't possible that somebody cannot go to somewhere, visit one place or other because there are architectural barriers. So that's the first thing. But you have given me the opportunity to say, and I'd forgotten about it, and it's something else we talked about, the tourism for the elderly. This is something that Japan talked about first, because Japan has an impact of 30% elderly on their whole tourism, and we asked them what they're doing, because that is an important part of tourism, because we too are an aging nation. I don't like to use the word elderly, because otherwise I'd have to consider myself elderly too. But we are growing. Let's say that we're grown up. We've got more people who are grown-ups. And we therefore talk together with Japan to understand what they're doing. And they said something which I found very interesting. They said that the Japanese government does the following for more adult people. The structures which are more comfortable, which have a series of services which are useful for those who are elderly, they give a subsidy. So if they reorganize their structures with maybe a medical help station, because maybe the elderly do need medical help. So the Japanese government will finance this type of tourism, and I think that we too should maybe ask ourselves a couple of questions on what we can do for tourists of those who have gone beyond a certain age. There's something that maybe we don't have in the rest of the world, maybe only France has it, which is thermal tourism. I think it's a very important part of tourism for those who are more grown up and who can go and have a holiday, to have more well-being, to have proper services, and to go and be able and visit beautiful places. I think that we ought to think about this, how we can help those who say are above the age of 65 or 70 to go on holiday. Because when one does go on holiday, one has more energy, one lives better. So keeping people busy, giving them the possibility of being curious, of seeing what they've never seen. It's a way of lengthening their life. And so we want to be committed on this as well. Sole 24 Ore. Good one. A few months ago, you started a meeting with the associations regarding online reviews. Are there any laws in view on the subject? We talked about it during this G7. It's like I was saying before, I mentioned it briefly, protection of data, which is fundamental, because we understood that we can't undersell or sell data at all, because it's a huge wealth which can't be sold. And we talked about reviews. We're going on. We Italians are going on. We're talking about this with the associations. There is a framework law within which we can move, but we are determined to understand how we can better regulate things in Italy, because clearly everybody can express their views on a restaurant or a hotel. They can say, of course, what they think, but we have to have a guarantee that that person actually went to that restaurant, because we know often reviews are sold without anybody having gone to actually sleep or eat in that hotel or restaurant. So we wouldn't want that to become an instrument for unloyal competition. It's easy. I buy you a package and I'll give you some reviews and I'll say that that restaurant gives terrible food, but then I've never been there. So to have the guarantee that those who say something or make a comment actually has been there and personally has personal experience. I, as Minister for Tourism, have never taken a decision if there was no direct contact with the associations, because we have to listen to those who work and those who know what the problems are, and we're continuing to talk together, and I hope that soon we'll be able to have a common position to be able to regulate this sector, which truly is important for tourism. We can have one last question. Clara Caleo from Sky. The manager of a structure up in Cadore gave a response to Israeli tourists as saying that since they are responsible for genocide, they're not welcome there. And what do you think? Well, what do you think I can think? I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that they should make a statement of this type. We talked about tourism as an instrument for peace and knowledge and sharing, and I'm really sorry that somebody says something like this, but we can't do anything special. I mean, we can't take any action. We can just say that it's a mistake, a big mistake, that it's not going to help anyone. It's not going to help him and his hotel either. It's not going to do any good to his region. It's not going to do any good to Italy. I don't think I need to add anything else. I don't want to be too strong. But if I may say just one last thing, I want to first of all thank all of you, because you are a fundamental part when we have events like this. It's an important event. An important event like G7, because I remember my grandmother always used to say that in life you shouldn't just know how to do, but you should get people to know that you know how to do things. And without your cooperation, whether it be critical or less critical, of course we're happier when you write well, but obviously, I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything strange. But also criticism can be positive, because maybe compliments don't make us grow. Instead, criticism helps us, stimulates us to do better. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for the work you do every day. The work you do, I think, is precious, important, and so I want to take this opportunity to thank you all.